The field and the factory were hit on the same day. It sounds like the beginning of a novel, but it's actually today's reality in America. On one side, farmers in rural areas struggle to keep their equipment running. On the other, factory workers in the industrial heartland watch production lines slow down. And at the center of both worlds stands a name we all know, John Deere. Recently, Deere shocked the market by lowering its profit forecast and warning about higher costs from tariffs. Within seconds, investors reacted, and Deere's stock price dropped. But here's the important part. This isn't just about one company's balance sheet. It's a snapshot of a much bigger story. A story about how tariffs ripple through the economy, connecting farmers in the fields, factories on the assembly line, and the prices all of us pay at the store. Think of it like dominoes. Push one piece, in this case, tariffs on steel, aluminum, and imported parts. And the chain reaction stretches from Wall Street all the way to the supermarket shelf. Today, we're going to follow that chain step by step to see how a policy decision in Washington reshapes daily life across America. Tariffs are only the tip of the iceberg. Beneath them are a web of hidden costs that, honestly, rarely make the headlines, but weigh heavily on both farmers and factories. Take shipping delays. A single spare part stuck at a congested port can idle a combine harvester for days. Every lost day in the middle of harvest season risks not just lower yields, but also sudden shifts in food prices. Energy is another invisible driver. Diesel prices affect every truck hauling crops, every tractor in the field, and every machine in the factory. If oil refineries slow production or pipelines get congested, fuel costs spike, and freight becomes more expensive. Natural gas and electricity are no less important. They power cold storage for perishable crops and keep factory service centers running. A power outage in rural areas can mean maintenance crews are forced to stop mid-job, leaving farmers stranded at the worst possible time. Even when spare parts are available, international shipping traffic adds layers of risk. A backlog at one seaport or a disruption in global container flows can throw off entire logistics schedules. Rail and road transport inside the United States often can't fully make up the difference. The result? Tariffs are amplified by these hidden frictions. The market senses this uncertainty and adds a risk premium to prices. In other words, consumers pay not only for goods themselves, but for the time, energy, and unpredictability embedded in the supply chain. But there's a lifeline forming closer to home. The United States, Canada, and Mexico are trying to rewire their trade routes to ease some of these pressures. When global trade gets tangled, businesses look for shortcuts. And in North America, that shortcut is the USMCA trade corridor linking the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Manufacturers are leaning more on Canada as a flexible port and shipping hub. For example, redirecting container traffic through Canadian ports can bypass some of the congestion and tariff risks at United States docks. On the southern side, cooperation with Mexico on customs harmonization helps reduce disputes and shorten border delays. A part that might have sat in limbo for weeks under stricter inspections can move faster under clearer rules. Beyond the continent, companies weigh longer routes to Europe or Asia. At first glance, these seem costly, but in reality, predictability often matters more than distance. A longer but reliable shipping route can be cheaper in the end than a short route plagued by tariff changes, bottlenecks, and unpredictable fees. Businesses will always choose certainty when margins are already tight. In other words, while Washington debates tariffs, North American companies are quietly redrawing supply chains. They're searching for stability wherever they can find it. But stability doesn't come only from trade partners. It can also be shaped by smart strategies and policies at home. When businesses face uncertainty, they don't just wait, they adapt. For United States manufacturers caught in the tariff storm, 3 strategies stand out. First, regional sourcing. By buying more steel, aluminum, and components from within North America, companies can cut their dependency on high-risk imports. Second, price stabilization and stock optimization. Some manufacturers build reserves of raw materials like steel when prices dip, so they're less exposed when tariffs or shipping disruptions drive costs higher. Think of it like a farmer storing grain for the winter. It cushions against bad seasons. Third, circular industry models. Instead of only selling new machines, companies invest in remanufacturing and certified used parts. This approach keeps older equipment running, supports local jobs in repair and refurbishment, and softens the blow when new purchases slow down. It also spreads out the cost impact between producers and farmers, creating a more stable ecosystem. Government policy has a role too. Targeted tariff exemptions for agricultural machinery parts could relieve pressure without undoing the broader tariff strategy. Tax credits and accelerated depreciation can encourage businesses to keep investing, even when margins are tight. And faster, simpler customs processes could cut weeks of delays into just days, saving both money and frustration. These solutions don't grab headlines like trade wars, but they matter. They decide whether farmers can get a spare part on time, whether factories keep shifts running, and whether prices on supermarket shelves stay steady. But even with smart strategies, the bigger picture is shifting. Tariffs are pushing America's allies and neighbors to look elsewhere, building new trade corridors that could outlast the policies that started them. Tariffs were supposed to shield United States industries. Instead, they are quietly redrawing the global map of trade. Countries that once relied heavily on American markets are now building new corridors with Asia, Latin America, and Europe. And once these routes are established, they're not easily reversed. Here's the core insight. Containers move faster than politics. Businesses don't wait for speeches or promises. They ship goods where costs are lower and rules are clearer. If the United States keeps changing tariff policies, allies may choose stability elsewhere, even if it means sailing farther. For farmers and factories, this means today's challenges, aging equipment, higher costs, delayed shipments, are part of a much larger shift. We're not just talking about short-term disruptions. We may be witnessing a permanent rebalancing of global supply chains, where America's role shrinks while new centers of trade rise. So here are 2 questions to leave with you. First, without tariff clarity from Washington, will Latin America and Asia lock in these new trade corridors for good? Second, are we watching the beginning of not just a tariff war, but a long-term shift in the world's economic backbone? What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how you see this playing out. And if you want to stay updated on how tariffs, trade routes, and supply chains evolve in real time, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. That way, you'll get the latest insights the moment policies change. Because in today's economy, one new tariff can ripple from the field to the factory to your dinner table, and understanding that chain is the first step to staying ahead.